Yes, it's that time again. And this afternoon, it was so nice the last time, we had to play it twice. Maxine Stowe was here last week. So was Wayne Chen, and people were clamoring. They said so much information was dispersed here. I mean, that we have to do it again. Talking about the state of the music, some of the things that went wrong, some of the things we should learn from, and where are we going from here? We're going to be talking more about some of the things that we can do and what we should do, and move away a little bit from the criticisms and the negativity, because there's a lot that we have done over the last 60 years as a nation, and when it comes to music, our impact has been phenomenal. Some people would say, maybe we're asking too much because we want to be a world power in music. A small country like this, we want to be a world power in athletics. A country of 3 million people. Are we going after too much? Are we too big in our expectations? We're going to be talking about some of these issues. As I said before, Maxine Stowe, a powerhouse in Jamaican music and music in general, and Wayne Chen, a man who knows so much about so many things. He's going to be talking with us, and she's going to be talking with us. It's going to be 2 hours of remarkable and interesting and exciting discussions on music and where we're going with this music. Welcome, Maxine. Welcome, Wayne.
Bless, bless.
Uh,
Yes, I still don't touch down yet, but soon.
all right. So, Maxine, we had some unfinished business last week, you know. Maybe, though, Wayne, I would want to touch on one of your pet passions, and that was a Jamaican Music Museum. You were very, very obsessed almost with the idea. And I think you brought in Maxine and myself at one stage
Yes,
into that
for
project.
full disclosure, we have been this idea has been floating around for a long time. In Jamaica, people like to claim ideas. I will never claim any idea as original, but it it gained some momentum back in 1998 when the Institute of Jamaica formed a committee to look into the setting up of a museum, a museum of Jamaican music. It was chaired by Sonia Jones at the time, and it included myself, Tony Lang, Colin Leslie, quite a few people, Ibo Cooper, Clinton Lindsay, a good cross-section of people who have been involved in music and people who have been involved in the wider cultural issues, in business. And we actually identified a building downtown, the Malab House, which was under the control of the Institute. At the time, it was really a bit rundown, but a historic building. And
Yeah, because Edna Manley used to work from there.
absolutely. And
yes.
a famous Jamaican painter used to work out of
Oh,
there.
Watson's.
No. Name just slipped out of my mind. Senior Moment Clyde. But we got quite a bit of work done, and we actually had the first exhibition there. Fast forward now about 7 or 8 years, and we recruited the great Herbie Miller, who had been directly involved in Jamaican music. He was working at a university in the US, and we enticed him to come home. By then, I was sitting on the council of the Institute of Jamaica, long story. And Herbie came home, and we actually do have, I'll say, a museum of Jamaican music. And Herbie has been doing a yeoman job, almost a one-man job,
Yes,
in curating and bringing things together. Fast forward now to 2022, and we see Paul Allen, co-founder of Microsoft, the late Paul Allen, a great collector of Jamaican artifacts, who has, it is reputed, the best collection of Jamaican memorabilia. And no disrespect to Roger
Stephens, okay.
No, different sort of things, the actual musical instruments and so on, because he had people out here buying over many years. I just saw in the news 2 or 3 days ago that his collection is going to be auctioned.
It's going
His
to be.
art collection and his collection of other artifacts. No,
So what?
I don't know where we are right now, Clyde, but I can tell you that some of those artifacts that were picked up for nickels and dimes in Jamaica 20 and 30 years ago are going to go onto an auction block at some point, if not in this round, at some time in the future. And these are going to be
go for millions of dollars.
Absolutely, sir.
But Wayne, you think that we perhaps don't place the value on our memorabilia or artifacts the way others do?
There's no doubt about that. We museology in Jamaica, it's still a very
Primitive?
I wouldn't say primitive. We have had great museologists. I can think of people off the top of my head who are great. The majority of them are working overseas. That is a part of our challenge. Because we have always seen the music business, and we talked about it earlier, music as a product, music as something we produce and we move on. We never saw that the mixing board that, for argument's sake, the original Casio keyboard that the Sleng Teng rhythm was first played on. I mean,
yes.
Jamie probably threw that away a long time ago.
Jamie is starting a museum of his own, I'm sure.
You understand what I'm saying to you? But can you imagine some of the original amplifiers that were built from scratch? Can you imagine if you could get one that scratches, not scratch, well, scratch,
yeah, but,
or
but,
Toby's
but,
old tube amplifier? You can imagine?
But some of those that Headley Jones built.
Absolutely.
You know, because that is a foundation of modern Jamaican music.
And we've done the chronology. The world's first solid-bodied electric guitar was built by a Jamaican, Headley Jones.
Headley Jones, yes. And
if anybody could find that now, or find one of the early models, that's a multi-million-dollar US dollar artifact.
And most of the great sound systems, the original sound systems, including Tom the Great Sebastian, which is credited as being the foundation of the thing. Headley Jones was a prime mover in that. And most people in Jamaica have never heard of Headley Jones, which brings me to another issue, which is the whole question of telling our stories, which we have not been very good at. You have written a book on reggae. You co-authored a book with Kevin O'Brien. But I mean, in many instances, and Copeland Forbes, I've been associated with his book, but you don't have many stories, and the fact is that there are great narratives
absolutely
associated with the development of Jamaican music.
In a past life, I actually sat on the Musgrave Medal Committee, and I will give props here to Dr. Barbara Gludon, the late Dr. Barbara Gludon.
Mama G, the great.
Yes, ma'am. Who highlighted the work of Headley Jones, because I myself, when we sat on the committee and she gathered all the information she could and honored him with a gold Musgrave medal, I believe this was about 2009 or 2010, she highlighted it. But where we are not good in Jamaica is continuing to tell the story after the man gets his medal, fantastic. He's recognized for his as an inventor, a Jamaican innovator, which is it's a narrative, a story that ought to be told to every Jamaican child. Here it is, somebody who is recognized as the creator of something new and significant. But 99% of Jamaicans have never heard of him.
And this is a story which has international resonance.
Absolutely.
Because the influence of Jamaican modern popular culture is unquestioned. How aren't we able to deal with this? How aren't we able to deal with this issue in a positive way?
Clyde, you're a great reader. And I know you're someone who, growing up, would have read like the biography of Thomas Alva Edison or Alexander Graham Bell. We hear of the great American inventors. We hear of Eli Whitney, the great English inventors. But how many Jamaican inventors are we taught about as Jamaican school kids? And yet still, I am told by non-Jamaicans that King Tubby, who built a radio station in
Waterhouse, yes,
built a studio, created a whole new genre of music, co-created.
Yes, I mean dub.
Absolutely. But how aren't we told about this great Jamaican innovator and inventor?
And we could go and we could talk about the story of hip hop, and how two Jamaican siblings went to the Bronx.
Yeah, man.
And,
DJ Kool Herc.
Right, and his sister Cindy.
Yes.
These are amazing situations, and we have to make sure that these stories are told, and that they are told too by Jamaican people.
Yes, and it's not just about inspiring more musicians, you know. King Tubby's story, Headley Jones' story, and others.
These are engineering stories. These are stories about invention and innovation.
Grit, hard work, vision, turning vision into reality with scarce resources.
No, and it's phenomenal, you know, what we have managed to do in these circumstances, you know, and I say there is a lot that can be had in terms of just financial resources and financial benefits, which we and also even from an identity perspective, just to lay claim to some of these things. But we are not telling the story, and if we're not telling the story, then we are in a major problem.
You know, one of the things that we had wanted to do with the Jamaica Music Foundation, and I don't know if Maxine is hearing this, is
I was
if you
about
go
to
to London and you
ask
see
if
the,
you forgot
the
that.
blue plaques in London where there are sites.
Well, let's take a break. Wayne, as we head to Caymanas Park. Musically speaking, it's that time. Clyde Mckenzie here with you, along with Wayne Chen and Maxine Stowe, giving you a look at the state of Jamaican music. We were talking earlier about telling our story and asserting our claims, because if other people tell our stories, sometimes they don't tell it with the empathy, they don't tell it with a deep understanding sometimes that is necessary, and sometimes they don't really put us in the role that we deserve. So it's important for us to tell our stories. Even the Maxine Stowe stories is something that's a big one, you know. And it must be told, right, Max? Hello, Maxine, you're there?
Yes, are you hearing me?
Yeah, I'm hearing you. I'm not seeing you though. Yes?
Well, you should.
Well-
I'm seeing you.
Okay, you're seeing me. Well, okay, I'm seeing you now. Yes. but so we're talking about the Maxine Stowe story, but a part of that story was Colombia, and we touched on the issue of the major labels getting deeply involved in Jamaican music and almost just deciding all of a sudden that the music was no longer viable. You said last week that it was not a failure, but it was a learning experience. What lessons do you think we learned from that?
Well, as I touched on last week, what I learned was that the American system caters to American artists, and that we are Jamaican artists coming from Jamaica into an international system. So we have our framework, which is our diaspora and our diaspora music companies, like VP Records, Island Records to a certain extent, that actually play a structural part in just the commercialization of Jamaican music. The way, you segued from Wayne's comment on the Jamaica Music Foundation in 2010. He was going into that area, and that's, was foremost in my mind as I came on the program today, because all three of us were involved in that effort. And that effort was actually at the 50th. It was being driven by the 50th anniversary of Jamaica as a country, and also the music industry developing in that same early 60s period. And now we're at the 60th. It's very interesting to me that we're gathered here, looking looking at the last 10 years in terms of that. I don't know where Wayne was going with the foundation, but I knew that the foundation was questioning and seeking to bring forward the same museum concept. At that time, Wayne, we had met with the late Honorable David Core, had summoned another group of personalities. It was very much driven at that time by intellectual property rights, how, we needed to not just set up a museological platform, but, incorporating and assessing our IP rights, because Jamaica's music had been licensed or bought off with Jamaica and Caribbean, the artists held those rights, still. So even though the major companies had the rights internationally, we as Jamaicans, as artists and producers, majoritively, we still own the rights for the music in Jamaica and the Caribbean. And so we actually, Wayne, we had invited Universal Music Group. I think it was the head of Island Records at the time, not Chris. Someone else had, Chris had, as you know, left Island from 1999. And with the aim of creating a conversation and a dialogue about how, Universal could both participate in the promotion of the 50th and also the promotion of our platforms that, our ideas in Jamaica. That didn't bear fruit. I mean, there was a change in administration and, things got not straightforward as it usually does in Jamaica when administrations change. But, it really, the conversation so far, I know you asked about Colombia, but I just had to, because that was on my mind, and Wayne went there. And I think it's still the major problem that we have structurally, and it feeds what the work that I do, all the work that I do. I just the other day launched the idea of the Dancehall Music Museum with a different pathway in terms of speaking not about reggae as Jamaican music, but dancehall, because I was again trying to find another gear with the reggae gear seemingly stuck in my estimation over all these years that Wayne just described, the different, tactics and the different nothing happening in terms of structural support. And now we hear that our assets are now potentially, I had Paul Allen Museum as something just like Roger Stephens in terms of reclaiming our artifacts. I'm not sure on what level we can do that, in that this is our DNA of our music.
Yeah,
and as Jamaican people, I'm just saying, as Jamaican people, even if the government and the private sector does not value to put in the facilitation for us to keep ownership of our assets, then we have to explore other means.
yeah, but Maxine,
You understand?
these people legitimately, as far as I know, acquired these things. It wasn't that they stole them. And as far
Yeah,
as
but then legitimacy in terms of power, because you're legitimate because you own capital. But I own the creativity of it. It is my idea. It is my product that was taken away from me because of a weak political economy. It's not supposed to be living here. People are supposed to license it for use, and it should return to me. I shouldn't have to purchase it back, or in fact, it should never have been sold. That's what I'm saying. That's the policy position of Jamaica that's weak.
no, but would we be not infringing on people's personal rights to dispose of their property and their I mean, these are private artifacts that individuals own, and they decide to dispose of them as they see fit.
Yeah, but if collectively you're losing the patrimony of your country that is the wealth for your future generations, you understand? I see all kind of discussions happening globally about the return of artifacts that were taken under some regime because they were in power and they feel like they could take it, or whatever this thing is. But I, as the person who created this, and now have nothing to show generations of my family, simply because of the political economy. You understand? We have to go deep and understand, why can't we own what we created? Why can't we own it?
So what's the next best thing now that maybe we can't use the political route that you have described? What might be the next best step? Some wealthy
Well,
Jamaican.
We went to UNESCO to complain that the world was taking away our rights, our name, our everything, that as we do something here, somebody, oh, I'm going to go register it in California. Oh, I'm going to register it in France. We're under subjection, right? So we went to UNESCO, you understand, to start to speak about this, how can we protect?
So could UNESCO have stepped in and said, well, look, we will purchase and pay for this, the return of these artifacts? Is that an option?
I think so.
Well,
I think so. The case can be made because it's being based on what these artifacts mean for the blueprint and the DNA of Jamaican music, that is an evergreen product, meaning it's not going to go away. It has established itself futuristically. Our generations to come must now fight the world that people are going to say they made reggae or they have it somewhere making money off. And it's not him to say you don't want a Jamaican music museum in Florida, in France, everywhere. But it should be returning benefit to us here. You couldn't have my studio. You couldn't take Studio One into France and say you are going to benefit the French people, and Jamaica, where it down at Brentford Road, what? How that going to work?
Here's where we are. We are here in 2022, and the museum is much more than a collection of artifacts. The fact is that we have to start with a plan of action, and what we have not seen in a robust way, despite years of lobbying, is a continuity of policy around a robust vision as to where Jamaican music should be a part of the national narrative. Mm-hmm. It still operates almost...
It's disjointed.
Absolutely.
And is it because it's African descendant music? Is it because it's black people music? I mean, I can get very deep, you understand, in what my research has shown. You understand? And link it to other issues with our education system, our health system, our land system, and link all of them to be connected as to why we can't own our intellectual invention. I'm saying, like, it's crazy.
It's
not something that's happening just to the music.
It's something I touched on last week, Maxine, and I euphemistically put it, that deep seat of seam, I will say, of conservatism in Jamaica, because there's still a lot of ambivalence, and I would want us to, we could do several programs on that, Clyde, but there is a huge ambivalence in this country about our African heritage, of course, even though we proclaim it, there is still a lot of unlearning and relearning that we have to do as a country. So that is a whole other discussion, Maxine, and there's no doubt that there is a lot of fundamental truth in what you have said. On the issue of the music and the people who created the music, the conservatism plays out, not just in terms of our Eurocentricity versus Afrocentricity, but in terms of the fact that the makers of music, the real creators, were rebels. There were people who operated on the fringe and outside of the system.
Yes.
Exactly. And
they're still rebels.
And continue to be rebels is the very nature of the business. Conservative creators.
Well, Joni Mitchell says, I mean, you don't cooperate if you're an artist. You need to be non-conformist.
In a previous life, I knew Eddie Braffett, and Eddie Braffett pretty much said the same thing. The people who are creating things of worth in Jamaica are not the people who sit down comfortably on the middle class veranda. He said it straight in my face. In other words, he's saying, you're not much hoping that you're too comfortable. But but it's a reality of life. And you can see, I mean, it plays out in so many ways in Jamaica. If you look at what is playing out right now in the schools versus prayer in the school, you know that who makes the rules in Jamaica don't have much space for ganja smoking Rastafarians. You know, it's just a reality. We might be polite in that in the public space, we are not going to say, yeah, we are going to be tolerant and we're not going to discriminate and all of that. But see how it plays out on the ground in Jamaica. And it's not the old colonialists that are the gatekeepers
Anymore.
No more. No. But why do you think that?
Maybe they're kids.
But here's
not
one.
necessarily their kids either.
Here's one for you because it still plays out not only in Jamaica but elsewhere in the Caribbean. Why are sleeveless dresses still blouses still a thing? That are barred.
Or why do we wear these hideous wigs in the courts?
on and on. But they're not unconnected to what we're talking about.
Musically speaking, we take a break. Musically speaking, that's the program. Clyde Mckenzie here with you. And there's Wayne Chen. And there's Maxine Stowe. And there is Daniel Doyle. And there is Tristan Palmer. No, not talking about the singer this time. But yes, Tristan is here. We have all of these people here with us and we're talking music. And here's the story. Maxine, you know, she sees most things through a political lens, you know. That's our friend Maxine. And I'm talking a little, I mean, the music business, you can't separate it from politics, maybe not partisan politics, but politics is a big part of the music industry. And when I started the discussion with you, Maxine, about the lessons learned, one of the things I was thinking of was that we did not seem to be in control. I mean, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. In fact, the people in the A&R were not the people who were ultimately in control of what was going on. It was the people in the business division that was setting the template for what should go on. And increasingly, most people said the business affairs people were dictating, and we had this cookie cutter kind of approach where the music was lacking or becoming less and less creative, and the people who were supposed to be making creative decisions were sidelined. And well, in the case of Jamaica, it was many of our acts who were signed to all these labels across America, including Colombia where you are, were unceremoniously dropped. Give me your narrative.
You know, I think Chris Blackwell and myself were probably the only two Jamaican personalities that were in the A&R, in the artist and repertoire signing of artists. Most of the people that I know that were signing the artists to the label, because that's the first place that you get in, and then you go to business affairs. So I would think that the majority of the artists that I knew at that period, they came through production deals with the producer having a lot of for example, specialists.
Specialist was signed, you're saying, to Colombia or through Epic, rather.
That was through Vivian Scott, who is not a Jamaican,
yes.
He's a Black American. You know, Buju was signed through, I think, Lisa Cortez at Loose Cannon. I think that went through Electra. But a lot of these deals were done, through production houses.
Right. So production houses were signed, and then the production houses had a deal with the artists. Yes. With the artists,
right. You know? And so...
somewhat like what Protégé now has with RCA.
Right, something.
Yes.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. So in terms of the marketplace, because I think Shabba, maybe was the first major artist that was breaking at that time. And again, most of these artists were breaking through VP Records. They were already, it's not like that the label signed and developed, an act. The market was already developing and crossing over, because I was at VP when Shabba and all of, and again, even the deals between VP and the music industry in Jamaica was again very much driven through producers and production houses
And even some of those that were not directly production deals. I can think of Beanie Man and Virgin. They were originally deals with VP. And,
VP.
yes.
Right?
And
right.
even Tonto Metro and Devante and Sony.
Devante.
Yes.
All of them were there.
That was also, those were deals that were made, with VP, and VP made arrangements, and we could even go as far as Sean Paul and Atlantic.
At that point, yeah, because at that point, after VP became the source for so many, artists going to various labels, they themselves developed a direct relationship with Atlantic, but at the same time, they still had to service, their distribution arm and, marketing to the streets was the service platform for all the labels. Any label that signed an artist that needed to keep that artist with his base had to have some arrangement with the distribution arm of VP, which was separate from the label arm that VP went on to develop, specifically at that time with Atlantic Records. And, they put Sean and a couple people through it. So if I'm going to assess the what happened at the majors in terms of was there an ability to cross, not just cross over, but to hold a holistic platform to manage so many signings, to the major label system. It would mean to me, futuristically or assessing it, that again, a more fundamental structural role would have to be set up, because in my mind, I don't see the people like, dropping, like, that's why I said, I see more failures in the system of the marketing and the promotion because it wasn't done properly, even though there was an appetite, meaning because once a label sign a Shabba, every other label wants to get in to the game, whether they know how to do it or not.
Maxine,
you understand what I'm saying?
Just a question,
yes.
though. You think that there was a misalignment between the objectives of the record labels and those of the media entities? Because, yes, the record labels gobbled up the artists, but they were not securing the requisite airplay. It was if there was something missing.
And it was not just airplay. I understand where you're going, Clyde, but what was a big drawback for the music was the artist's willingness to go and do promotional work. The American artists within their system, they understood the need to do lots of, free work.
Hold your horses, literally, Maxine, as we go back to racing at Caymanas Park. Musically speaking, Chevelle Franklin, Beanie Man, Dancehall Queen, Clyde Mckenzie with Wayne Chen and Maxine Stowe. Wow, what a program this has been so far. Dancehall Queen, I have so many friends in that, Audrey Reed and Pauline Stone Myrie and all of these people playing this role, their roles in this thing. One of the sad things, though, Wayne, is that we have not really capitalized on the movie side of the business. The holiday come and you have Dancehall Queen, but there is so much more. Because the Jamaican stories, even just the music stories, are just so incredible. I would pay very little attention to that. And also, we were talking off the air about the impact of some of these artists that we don't know about. The international impact. We were talking about Beanie Man. And I was telling you that if I were not on the road with him, I would not have realized how powerful his impact was. Because if you're going to look at the official representation in the charts and this and that, no, sometimes you get misled. But when you see what was happening in the streets or among artists, when I saw some of the big time artists seeing him and how they went crazy, you know, you then you start to say, oh, but this is different from what we're thinking.
And you know, it's something that I've grappled with certainly since the 1980s as to what is the actual contribution. Because I look at the Jamaica in many different ways. I look at the figures for national income, which is the gross domestic product. And I've always been curious to know how much does the music business contribute to Jamaica's GDP. My estimate going back to the early 90s, going back 30 years, was at that time it was roughly around 100 million US dollars per year. And it comes in many different forms. Because Jamaican's music business, going back to Maxine for a bit, is formal and informal at the same time, it is difficult to measure. It is difficult to measure because nobody's tracking when Jamaicans are touring overseas, how much of that comes back, how much we get back in royalties, and on and on. How much, when overseas artists come to record in Jamaica and so on, how much do they leave here in terms of studio time and so on and so forth. A lot is going on that is just not measured, and perhaps for good reason. But for policymakers, they ought to know the size of it if we are going to put in place policies that encourage further growth and sustainability. Clyde and I were talking because, you know, of course, Clyde has a history, Shocking Vibes and Beanie Man, and he knows that whole thing very well. But a lot of Jamaicans don't even understand how the Beanie Man as a brand and as a product and as a performer, how it has been a terrifically sustainable and sustained earner for this country. Beanie Man
and
has
untapped.
Yes. He's been relevant for over 30 years, which is remarkable in the music industry where people come and people go. And from time to time, no, social media is fantastic, you know, because you can know what is happening on the ground without having to wait on the local journalists and so on. Beanie Man, I think is in a couple of days, if not this weekend, has a stadium show, just to give an example, in Kampala, Uganda.
East Africa.
Yes, man. And if you look at the buzz on the ground in Uganda right now, in anticipation of the Beanie Man show, which will be viewed live, I mean, people will be there in the stadium by tens of thousands of people. How many people know that Beanie Man can fill a stadium, not an arena venue? In many cities in the world today. He did it in Nigeria, in a series of West African cities a few months ago. I think when people were shocked about how many viewers there were when Versus had
with him and Bounty.
with him and Bounty, people are still wondering when last Bounty had a hit record. It's almost irrelevant, you know.
No, it's irrelevant when it comes. I mean, when you're of that stature,
there's an audience out here.
It's irrelevant.
It's a huge audience. I was looking to see what was going to happen when Beanie touches down in London in about 3 weeks, and it's an arena venue. This is not a club venue. Think about it. And I fast, you know, because look down the ticket prices. The cheapest ticket is £55 if Jamaicans want to know. That is what? 10,000 Jamaican dollars.
So,
the
yes,
cheapest.
The cheapest ticket.
In an arena venue in London. Nobody's asking when the last Beanie Man ever hit. The question is, how many paying customers will come out to see Beanie Man in different parts of the world? And that's Beanie Man. I got 2 days ago was Tommy Lee Sparta, who is currently incarcerated, and it might be controversial for me to raise him. But that's another story. I was in Guyana some years ago, Clyde, and you're a Caribbean man, you travel. And when I land in Georgetown, and all the buzz is Tommy Lee. I wonder if Jamaicans understand that when Tommy Lee landed in Georgetown, he's as big as any American R&B or rock star. It's a stadium venue we're talking about, you know.
No, but just next door in Suriname, when you go to Paramaribo, almost every week, when I used to be there regularly, almost every week, you had a Jamaican artist down there.
Yes, of course.
And they would be filling
of course
a major venue. I mean, when you go into the square in Paramaribo, and you see these huge billboards.
I want to send out a prayer for Spice right now. We don't really know what is going on, but you know, I mean, I must confess on air that I'm deeply concerned, and it's really deeply upsetting and troubling, the news that we are hearing. My mind goes to her because when she was in Guyana last year, it was a huge, huge sensation. I mean, She's big. People.
No, I mean,
Do
no,
people understand how big?
no, no,
Spice
no,
is?
no. Spice is massive. I mean, and I love Grace.
You understand?
L-
You
l-
understand
l-
what I'm saying? So it's not only me. I mean, my 16-year-old daughter sent me a note. She said, "Dad, what am I hearing?" I said, "Are you?" She said, "Yeah, everybody." I think Jamaica's prayers are going out for her right now. But you see, we know she's big, but we don't know how big
No,
she is.
because you don't. You have to be on the road sometimes to witness what is going on, and get a
Right.
sense.
So, which it comes forward to what you are asking me about the marketing of the music and the difficulties that, ended in the artist at a certain period being, dropped by the label.
Hmm.
Being there, and the idea was that the music would break and had the potential to break if we went on the type of tours. We had just come through a major tour that Sony was sponsoring for the Cool Runnings movie that had several of our artists, featured on it. And it was at a critical time when the music, the business of the music was recognizing that the idea shouldn't be to spend so much money on getting airplay, because that's a huge um,
Expense. Yeah.
in expense. But what we should be doing is putting these acts out on the road. And that was where I saw the clash, experienced the clash between the artist from Jamaica who is used to being, paid
More.
sensationally
Yeah.
when they came to do certain shows in
Bec-
certain communities in our diaspora um, cities versus what it took to carry them on the road, to break them outside of their Jamaican markets into the college,
Yeah, and there was
and
always
pop
a tension.
markets.
There was always a tension between what you could obtain doing these gigs and what you
Gigs,
were going to be getting doing these promotional shows.
right.
And and
And
and you
that's
had to be
where,
very, very creative in terms of handling that, because in many instances the artist's retinue or his entourage would be paid by the record company for promotion, but the artist himself wouldn't get anything sometimes. And in other instances, there was nothing when, you had all of these paid events where people in the diaspora were booking you for all different types of shows. So a lot of times what was happening is that the artists would decide that, look, we're not going on these promotion thing and the money not there. You understand? The food not there.
and this,
right. So that's why I'm saying it's not, that's why I said when I caution about the use of certain words to describe certain things, it is more for us to study, because even the same issue was there for the Whalers when they went on their Catch a Fire tour
Well, they said that Bunny left the
and
tour saying that Chris Blackwell gave him a statement, said that him owe
he
Blackwell,
owed them,
well,
like
because
he
he
couldn't
didn't, well, he
understand.
didn't understand tour support. Maybe
Right,
the concept of
exactly.
tour
It's
support.
not just him alone. It's Bob, Peter, and Bunny
Hold a
were
second.
very
Hold a second, Maxie. Musically speaking. Musically speaking, Clyde Mckenzie here with you, along with Wayne Chen and Maxine Stowe. I just want to say something about a bit of news I've heard. It's not very pleasant. I see it on social media, and Wayne, you have confirmed it,
Yes, I have.
that Tyrone Downey, of the Whalers,
And the Whalers and so much more.
right, Organ D, the Great, has passed. I think the last time I saw him was about 6 years
Yes,
ago.
man. He was a 40th man.
I saw him at they had an event honoring Jackie Mittoo, my great friend, and I was asked to speak there. And he and Harold Butler put on a show. It was unbelievable, playing Jackie Mittoo music. I mean, that's very, very sad. Wonderful soul. He had been living in France.
He had done a lot of work in France, and you see, this is where now we have to do that assessment of the life, the human, the condolences, of course, to his family and friends. But one of the things that we have not been good at in Jamaica is really assessing his life, work, and impact, and it is considerable.
Well, we haven't been good at assessing and valuing the works of our icons, to be very honest, in many instances.
No, Tyrone Downey played with Bob Marley and the Wailers. He played with Peter Tosh. He played with Jimmy Cliff. He played with Burning Spear. Significantly, he played with Youssou N'Dour in France. For those of you who don't know, Youssou N'Dour is one of the biggest acts to come out of Africa.
Yes.
And bringing that, and you know, and this is how the music spreads. When Jamaican musicians bring the reggae and the dancehall vibe into other genres, it directly influences how the other genres behave.
Yes.
He played for a while with Tom Tom Club. Tom Tom Club is an American
right.
rock group, you know, and you know, Tom Tom Club did some associations with the Melody Makers
yes,
back in the 80s, and on and on.
Tom Tom Club's music is influenced Karen Wheeler, Beyonce.
A lot of other things. I mean American New Wave was heavily influenced.
Yes, I mean, Mariah Carey, you name it. Yes.
No, Chris France and Tina Weymouth. So people don't even understand when a Jamaican musician of the stature and exposure of Tyrone Downey sits in the studio and collaborates with other musicians of other genres, how the seeds of Jamaican music and the DNA of Jamaican music is spread.
And just an unassuming, warm, friendly person.
Like so many of the greats.
Like so many of the greats. Tyrone Downey.
However, you know, one of the things that I experienced in trying to resolve this problem, because that is being stated here, because, you know, I'm here saying, well, okay, we're very educated on the problem, but we're not educated on the solution. Or, you know, where do we go understanding the problem being revolving door of problems, same problem coming round and round? How do we get off of this wheel? You know, do we just depend that, we have an overabundance of talent, you know? Because I'm thinking, who is being signed now? Protege, Coffee, Shensia, you know? There are some signings going on now, you know? Mm-hmm. You understand? And Chronics and
I see a team has been assembled behind. Teams have been assembled behind Skeng.
Well, John Baker.
Behind Skillibeng.
Right.
Yes.
Right. Is there any difference that's going to happen with this round robin? No. I already know the answer.
That's a rhetorical question, Maxine.
No, you know.
Yeah, there'll be, you know, but.
Without broadening the base, and you know, it's a long-standing peeve of mine, as we've touched on. We touched on track and field and Jamaica's track and field excellence without really expounding more on why Jamaica has built this base in track and field. And the base is built in every primary school, every high school in this country. Everyone has a track department. We had a quantum leap forward when we started training Jamaican coaches at GC Foster. We made another quantum leap forward when, instead of Jamaicans going overseas and not necessarily fitting into the American college system, we made a quantum leap forward.
that was one of the biggest ones.
And it comes back to it's obvious that the network that you build, starting at the grassroots, has to be broad, it has to be strong, it has to be embedded. You know, the current Minister of Culture said 10 years ago, and I'll quote her continuously, Jamaica relies on 3 T's: tradition, talent, and training. And it's no different for the music business. If we are not teaching music and teaching the fundamentals of music in every primary school in this country, every high school in this country, we are losing 90% or more of our potential.
Yeah, but we should also be teaching the students about on whose shoulders they stand.
Absolutely.
So
if we can't agree that every school in Jamaica should have a picture of King Tubby on the wall, I'm not even talking about Bob Marley, you know. I'm talking getting into the innovators and the nitty-gritty, because these are not inspiration just about music. These are inspirational role models for being Jamaican, for being a young, poor Jamaican with limited tools and resources.
And mastering, in other words, mastering technology, multi-tracking, and appropriating that and bringing it home.
And moving the needle of global culture.
And moving the needle of global culture as a result of that.
Right. So
But
I'm
but
going
but
to speak of
Maxine,
another
yes,
JA country called Japan. Right?
Mm.
Now, Japan has a national treasure policy in relation to identifying what is its cultural patrimony and stepping in with policy and all kind of funding breaks, etc., to support that it is not exported, it is not altered, it is not transferred. This is the relationship that I say has to exist, not just amongst us, the artists or business people, etc., but there has to be that policy, that understanding that when people come in, just like when you're flying to certain countries, you know that you cannot leave through the airport with goods and services that they consider culturally relevant and significant, right? No, we've
yeah,
been,
I mean, and there are some
I'm
countries that
talking
have that
about
policy, yeah.
solutions. I'm talking about solutions to this
Yeah,
revolving.
but Maxine, I'm going to ask the question though, because some might say that the popularity of our culture has been contingent on the ability to allow it to flow in and out.
To be exploited at this level?
No.
I'm saying that one of the things is that our culture has spread because it has not been confined.
I am less concerned, Maxine.
I don't think so.
Frankly,
I don't think
I'm less concerned with the physical artifacts and more concerned with the intellectual property. And there was a turning point in my mind. One day I picked up a CD, Maxine, and I saw the credit for Rivers of Babylon given to Frank Farian.
Well,
I could fall down on my back.
No, but Fari must have written the Bible,
But
which he wasn't shy of making claim for.
A German producer who borrowed the song from the Melodians to make a hit for Boney M.
But Boney M will tell you some
bought the
stories.
intellectual right from Brent Dow et al. And then somewhere along the line, he moved from owning the intellectual property to becoming the creator of intellectual property. And I watched the transition in awe to see why the critical thing for Jamaica is, and the practical thing is, building up the knowledge of the value of our intellectual property, owning it and protecting it. Now, I say this,
some.
and reclaiming some. But the first thing is to own and understand what we have. I mentioned last time we met that we have to understand leveraging. It's as the business model changes rapidly, and I say rapidly. I mean, when the producer of this program called me and said, suggest a few songs. When I went through the list, a lot of the songs that came to my mind could never be played on this program. I mean, Cordell Green.
That's what I heard too.
Would never fit. I wouldn't want to spoil Cordell's, Reverend Cordell's Sunday. So my friend, if he's listening, you can get a chuckle over your rice and peas and chicken, my friend. But no, I wouldn't do that. But the point is that much of what is being consumed now does not rely on radio and will never rely on radio. The kids are going straight to the internet and listening to it, whether on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, whatever it is. So my inspirational playlist will include Life Changes by Skeng, but I couldn't play it on this program. I couldn't play anything by Skeng on this program, unfortunately, because I think some of my peers need to hear Skeng, but they would have to do it on their own.
But the question is, there seems to be an adversarial position between the establishment, the elite, and these emerging artists.
Can I say some and some?
Or some and some.
Okay.
But my question is this position helping us? Because shouldn't there be a greater level of understanding, a move to see what each side is thinking? I mean, and maybe each side would be able to get a better appreciation of where each other where the thing can go. I mean, because right now, I think even from the standpoint of the violence mitigation strategy, I think if there was greater understanding, greater dialogue between the various nodes, I think we could have better outcomes.
I'll put it this way.
But Wayne just mentioned three T's, right? And I don't know what maybe it can't be left to T's. Because when I heard about training, and I heard the Prime Minister mention the other day that he is going to put up some music school to help with the band, you know, or, you know, some consideration that they're banning. And so he thinks that training will be a result, you know, will assist this. And I'm saying to myself, in my whole journey with Jamaican music and where it is now, I'm wondering where this training, this formal training thing would be going. My mind is like, where is the money? Where is the investment, procurement, you know, to really expand and to educate? Is this training going to talk about what we spoke about before, that okay, we are external product, so what is going to happen when we can't go on tour, you know, for the big money? We have to tour for the radio stations, we have to go into markets, we have to break. Is that what we are going to be teaching in the, you know, in these schools? And are we going to be subsidizing the artists to break through in the international market, to say, yes, forego the money in the in your New Yorks and Miamis and so on, because we need to go not to the Jamaican radio station, we need to go to the top 40 station in that market, which is going to preclude you getting your 100,000, you know, in that. Is that the training that we're going to be part of this curriculum?
Well, that should be part of maybe that might not be part of the thought process right now, but that maybe should be introduced to the discussion, to say maybe part of what we are going to do, if we are going to have this kind of investment, is to have these things being prioritized, you know. Of course, there's a lot of discussion as to...
We went to UNESCO, you know. We went to UNESCO, right? So that's why I know the tools are there to get all this information that we seem to not have. You understand?
No,
that
and
the
I want to...
information that we don't have, it's almost purposeful why we don't have it.
And Maxine, I want to go back to one of the things that you brought up, which was Bunny Wailer and the tour support issue, because to me that speaks to some fundamental questions.
Not Bunny Wailer, the Wailers.
But he was a man who left the group because him say Blackwell didn't.
No, they all broke down and left and got frustrated.
But Bob still remained. Bob still
remained. He didn't remain. It wasn't just a remain. There was a process of negotiating with Bob for him to come back. It wasn't just like, oh, Bob stayed. All three of them left. And then there was a negotiation and a focus to say, oh, let's do this, let's that. But they were all upset. It wasn't one person.
So we're saying then that the Wailers didn't understand the business of tour support. It seems also that there were a number of other issues, and you can't blame them. These were kids, really. When technically, when they signed to Blackwell,
and you know, as I'm thinking about it, you know, and it's pure anecdote. I never spoke to him directly about it, but when you consider that after the Wailers, the top-selling reggae album ever is Hot Shot by Shaggy, which has sold now by some counts 10 million, by some counts more.
Yes.
But at around 2000 when it came out, I mean, word coming out of his support group was Shaggy is a good guy to work with. And why was that? He would go to a city, he would do a big show, and then right after he would be on the radio station talking up
He knows.
his career and so on.
He knows
because
promotion.
he understood the value of and his handlers. I don't know if he understood it personally, but certainly he did because after.
But he grew up in America.
and growing up in America is not a guarantee, apparently.
No, but you understand.
Yes. You understand it. You understand how you build momentum. You talk to your audience after they're feeling high on the show. Who didn't go to the show, hear your voice after. He knows that they know the radio stations that reach.
No, but
You said
but
you know,
even
Maxie
though
said the
even though
diaspora, the so-called urban market and the diaspora market.
even though you see
yes.
though you see the collaborations
Yeah,
that
man.
he's making,
He works.
well, so there's a Sting on one side,
I
but
land-
there's a TG on another
I
side.
landed in Nairobi. Shaggy had the number one song in Kenya, Strength of a Woman. I mean, that was back in about 2001, maybe 2000. So you see the work. You see the work that the artists who put in the work to promote themselves. And never too big to say, boy, my ego mean what? Go talk to Clyde Mckenzie on film program after me done put out a 2-hour show or a 3-hour show. No, they understand. They understand what you said before, that you tour to support the record sales, you sell records to support the tour, and you talk on radio. Nowadays you have the podcast, the online programs, and so you speak directly to your audience. They understand social media. Somebody said to me the other day that Shensia having 5 million followers of Instagram is of no moment. And I could have fallen on the floor. I said, how do you brush off 5 million followers on Instagram? I mean, Shensia is already in the top 10, if not in the top 5 of Jamaicans in terms of Instagram followers. So if she does nothing else, she can leverage that into brand.
No, and we're going to talk about how people are launching, like Beyonce and Rihanna, how they're launching their albums now. We're going to the track, and then we'll be right back. Maxine, this is your version of the Electric Boogie, right? Yeah? Bunny Wailer's version of the Electric Boogie. I mean, Bunny, this is not the original version, we should tell you. Bunny wrote the Electric Boogie. He wrote it for Marcia Griffiths, and then he did his own version. I don't know what got into Bunny, why he did it, or what was the thinking there, but Maxine, maybe you can tell me why that happened.
Marley when he did Over One Love.
No, but I mean, because Electric Boogie seemed to have been doing well, the Marcia Griffiths version. Talk to me about it.
No, what I'm saying is Bunny, I don't know how many years passed between, I couldn't recount those facts at the moment. The years between the original and when it was actual, Right.
when it actually
And
became
was
a
made
big
a
hit.
cover.
No, when it became a
Right,
big hit,
right.
because it was
Right.
redone, right? Because there was an original, and I think Blackwell had to do it over without Bunny's improvisation, his ad libs and stuff. That is the story, right?
Yes, a remix, I guess.
Well, I understand it was a re-recording of the song. Because
But you know,
Well, that happens at the time. But what I'm saying, I didn't equate it that way. Meaning, I know Bunny has his version, which has the right,
Electric
has the
Boogie
right of the song. Yeah.
is a very interesting story, because it was never a hit in the traditional sense of being a hit. You can't go back to a chart and say it ever topped a pop chart or topped a dance chart. What it turned into through momentum, I said,
Was like-
Electric Slide.
the slide really.
and then it became
took- yeah, and I mean, you
became-
could go nowhere in
without hearing
America
it. If you go on
without
a
hearing
cruise
it.
ship, you have the playmakers in the hotels, resorts, and so on. So it became a perennial in resorts, and it's like a holiday perennial. You go on a cruise ship, you're going to do Electric Slide, and you're going to do it in aerobic, whatever it is. And it's just a reminder that there are many ways to earn from music. And Electric Boogie is a case in point. The fact, though, is that here we are giving anecdotes, but this should all be in the playbook of our artists in terms of leveraging your music over time. We touched earlier, and I don't know if we're going to segue at some point in other media, movies, and I'm going to touch it. Just yesterday, I was having a chat with my kids who were going to music lesson. They are doing classical music. And I said, would you know that we were playing some Hans Zimmer, who is a German
soundtrack man.
composer. But
Yes.
I said, would you know that Ennio Morricone, the great Italian composer, who did all the old spaghetti westerns, Good, the Bad, and the Ugly,
Yes.
in a way influenced Jamaican music? And I said, really? I said, yeah. When we in Jamaica were going to the Italian movies on a Saturday, in Saturday matinees here, and hearing Morricone,
Yes.
it influenced. If you listen to the music of the time, and there were reggae versions of Morricone songs in
Yeah,
it,
but I mean,
and we adopted some of the
yeah, a lot of the classics,
In fact, my son laughed and said, when he hears Ika Mouse, who a lot of Jamaicans remember, you can see Ika Mouse as a lot of that Western movie.
Yeah, you have Lone Ranger.
Yeah, exactly, Lone Ranger.
Bonanza, you have Bonanza, you have all of these.
But we see the thing coming full circle on Maxine, because I was watching The Hard Day Fall on Netflix. And I don't know if you know when the entry comes in. And he was a Barrington, James Samuel, who directs the movie and is a big fan of Jamaican music. He has remixed a Barrington Levy song. But it's brilliant. I mean, you're listening to it and say, all of this, what we were told, this is Western music and movie music, it's all that fabrication, If you think of the whole myth that is made up around Western movies, none of that music was relevant to what was happening in the Western United States. In fact, a lot of it is fabricated.
It's fabricated, yes.
So, and the man is saying, in effect, if you can use Aaron Copland and some mythical sort of thing, or use whichever, Elmer Gantry, but not Elmer Gantry, whoever the Western composers are, why can't we use Jamaican music? I mean, we are borrowing from them, they are borrowing from us. So let us just go the whole gamut. And I say this to say that music has many lives. So a hit for Barrington Levy from the 1980s.
Sometimes a song, I mean, that's one of the fabulous things about a song.
Yeah.
You do it 400 years ago and it comes back. I mean, we see classical influences on so much of our songs,
So when I see this remix of Barrington, and then I see Coffee riffing off it, because she also did a song Holiday Fall, which is brilliant.
Right.
And I'm saying, maybe the next song, maybe we're going to see some other drama now. We see Murderer get a remix. I mean, this is...
Yeah, I mean, and
why not?
Why not?
Song.
Well, we played Dancehall Queen earlier,
yes,
which was the soundtrack, for the movie Dancehall Queen. And the follow-up was Third World Cup. And I was just speaking with someone the other day that, I'm highly disappointed that trending with the movies and the soundtrack that was established with those two movies, especially because they were filmed in a certain way and under a certain type of a budget.
Low budget, yes.
Yeah, but it was like it's like the reality videos.
It wanted to go into a new kind of
a new genre, right?
Yes.
And I thought that was going to happen.
It happens.
But Bollywood is kind of like that.
But I'm going to tell you something. The global streaming services have invested so much money now into non-US and non-UK film industries. I mean, the amount of money going into Nollywood now in Nigeria, which is the second biggest in the world after Bollywood, in terms of production output. If you have looked at Nollywood over the last 20 years and seen the evolution of production standards, just based on the audience and based on investment, you have to wonder. 20 years ago, I was at Edna Manley here giving a presentation, and some film students came up to me afterwards and talking, lamenting the lack of investment. I said, here's a secret I'll share on air. When I was a kid, when I was 16 years old, I wanted to be a filmmaker. I mean, when I went on campus, I hung out with filmmakers. That is where I met people like Chappie Set and Houston. So they wouldn't know me. I'm a youth, and I'm not doing film. But in those days, you had to shoot on 16mm. You had to take it to a studio.
Yes, and process.
Nowadays, people are shooting whole movies on iPhones and doing all of the processing on a laptop. And I'm talking about films that have gone into popular release. You can look it up. There's a film called Tangerine. You can have a look at it. And there are other films. What I'm saying is that nowadays, you are less limited by that kind of resource. But here it is now, you have to step up a game on the technical prowess, on the creativity, on the script. And this is where a lot of us fall now, because we're not writing. And we see it playing out also in the music. So music is not just about learning how to play a musical instrument.
Yeah, you have to learn
It's about how to develop a worldview that is unique, deep.
Yes, yes. I mean, because that was what Marley, Tosh, and Whaler was about.
Coming back again to when Tommy Kwan, or it was Skill Code, I don't remember, it might have been Tommy, asking Bob, why is he listening to the Bee Gees? You understand me? And Bob says, these guys are selling 1 million.
Of course. No, and he was a sharp businessman.
Yeah.
He knew what was happening.
But Wayne, where is the business part? Because I'm on that part, I'm sitting in meetings with various people and trying, like, I don't know what happens at Jam Pro, but, or what happens just, that level of people that think and develop channels and stuff like that. Because I was even speaking with VP the other day because I'm trying to bridge what happened at Palm Pictures with those two movies and what's not happening or what I see happening on the street with young people, capturing content, but there's no marriage of that content with the music. You understand? To get it
but
to the Netflixes.
We have to create that ecosystem and put ourselves in that place.
No, who is the we that has to create this ecosystem? Because
if we're waiting on the government, it ain't
not government. I'm not talking about no government. That is what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to understand what is because I see it. I'm talking to people and saying, we ought to go into this area. When I investigated Palm Pictures with Chris and some staff members or people that were working, and I said, what happened? I'm upset because we had a good thing going. We had two successes behind each other that there should have been a third and a fourth and a fifth, right? And they said, someone came in and they took the budget, $8 million, and made some crazy film with Glenn Close, and it lost so much money that we who had established those two, Jamaican-driven things, it died because of some lack of
clarity and conviction.
Clarity and business and conviction. Not for Chris. So I'm saying, when people are telling me they want to make another school or another area of
You're talking
training.
to the wrong guy about that one, Maxie. Because my view is completely different. My view is that
in terms of
if you have finite resources, I always believe in building the base.
The base being?
Getting more music education across the country, because I am of the fervent belief that if instead of one alpha, you had 50 alphas in Jamaica, if instead of one good music teacher name a school at KC, every high school in Jamaica had a good music
we have Netflix. We have Apple.
I agree.
We have Amazon.
The distribution
Spending
channels
money now.
Yes, but we did not build the capacity to take advantage. We should have been building that capacity. And when I said we, more technicians, more creatives. You know how Nollywood got built? Nollywood never got built on a cinema distribution system. They weren't waiting on MGM.
It was on CDs and
it was on VHS was the biggest jump forward for Nollywood.
Yes.
And they built in piracy as part of the business model. In other words, I am going to make a movie. I'm going to release 20,000 originals because there's such a great anticipation. And there was a transition. I mean, the natural transition in Jamaica ought to have been what I call the roots theater circuit, where people hone their acting skills, their writing skills. Village Roots that becomes a movie, transitions to VHS. And it goes into the diaspora market because Jamaica, the island,
that would
is
be
not
a base.
sufficiently
That would be a base.
Nollywood built its base on a rapid response. You flood the market quickly with the VHS, knowing that next week, once the VHS goes out there, the copies are in the marketplace the following week. So you work up, you work backward. Can I sell 20,000 copies of this starring so-and-so because he has made his name? And you may not know it, but stand-up comics are a big thing in Nigeria. You can't have a big wedding. If you are anybody who is anybody in Nigeria now, you're going to get a local comedian to come and give 2 jokes at the wedding or whatever it is. So there's a whole ecosystem that feeds film. We had the makings of an ecosystem, but in very discrete pieces here and there. But the way to build it and the way to build your chops is to teach more, to build the base. You have to build the base. Jamaica is not sufficiently large, but we have proven that even though we are not large, we are a big pool of talent. Coming back to the 3, Jamaica is fewer than 3 million people, but we are dominant in track and field. But with no stone goes unturned in Jamaica in terms of developing and unearthing talent. The talent in Jamaica, yes, there might be a heavy concentration. People say Trelawney and so on and so forth. But the fact is that talent comes from St. Thomas to Hanover in Jamaica. Merlin Ott is from
Hanover.
Exactly. So, but we find them because there is a network, there's an infrastructure that finds a talent. Music is not so lucky. Even though music generates far more income for Jamaica than track and field, we have not built that infrastructure. There's no.
Who's the we?
No, I'm telling you. I'm telling you now how track and field is built. We're using the example.
No. I'm saying who is the we that has not built that infrastructure?
But with track and
I
field,
still come to you, Maxine, the specifics.
yes.
We invest in playfields in Jamaica. We invest in development. The state, Jamaica, develops in the development needs, the SDC. There's a Social Development Commission. There's a Chase Fund. There's a Ministry of Education budget that puts in funding. I told you we made several quantum leaps forward. The first quantum leap, GC Foster, when you started training local coaches. So if you're going to have an Edna Manley, yes, train more music teachers, but you make it a part of the budget to teach music. We're not going to create 3 million Bunny Whalers, but it has been proven over and over that teaching music helps the other subjects.
It helps all the
you
subjects.
learn music, you learn better math.
Yes.
So it might sound counterintuitive,
Yes.
but learning music actually helps them.
Right. That's true.
There's no discrete thing. So let us start with that. We already have the infrastructure. In other words, Jamaica has 200 high schools. It has close to 1,000 primary schools, and in fact, it has 2,000 plus basic schools. Why isn't the state funding music education, which it might be a longer term investment, but there's no doubt that that investment will more than pay for itself in the 3 or 5 year. But the plan is not written. I don't see the plan. You know of the plan? But let us start.
Yeah, I don't know. I remember going to Excelsior and growing up
but
and
Excelsior
having music. No. I'm just trying to.
The traditional so-called grammar schools have music departments. So it's not a coincidence that so many great keyboardists came out of KC. It's just a fact. There's no coincidence that Manchester High, Knox College, and quite a few schools produce the people you see eventually. But there are many schools in Jamaica with no music department.
No,
The
I
primary
understand.
schools
I mean,
certainly.
music beyond even the music industry.
Sure.
It creates the mental state to
Absolutely.
be non-violent, and
So-
it has so many.
So here's what is counterintuitive.
Societal.
Here's what is counterintuitive, Maxine. You have an industry which conservatively is earning 100 million US a year. It could be more, could be less, but let us say 100 million for argument's sake. But are we investing anything near that back into the schools to say, where's the other 90% of the talent? Because untapped talent is Jamaica's great tragedy. I might be lucky enough to end up at Alpha or end up at Boystone or end up at a KC that had a Barry Davis. You understand me, at a Barry Davis at a particular time, or whoever, or you find a Sparrow Martin took you in and mentor you. But if I'm growing up in, name a place, if I'm growing up in a town in Jamaica where the school I go to just does not have a music department, or music is a very rarefied thing that a few people go touch the drum or touch the keyboard, at a time when the tools are the cheapest ever, because you can do it on the same computer that you have there, software, the access is easier than ever, but we're not doing it. And this is what I'm saying. Fundamentally, there's a disconnect between the importance of music to us socially, to us economically, to us historically, and the actual investment in the things that matter. Not the things that look good, but the things that really can move the needle forward.
No, but what?
5 minutes.
Sorry for the little round here.
No, but
I believe in the basics in it. You see, it's not pretty. There's no cutting of a ribbon when you say, here it is now, we're going to write in the Ministry of Education budget next year that we're going to formalize the role for a music teacher in every single school, and the computers, when we put them in, and the tablet, it must have the app in there that allow the kids to play a little keyboard on the laptop or whatever.
Even if you're talking about quality,
sure,
in the traditional sense, what you're talking about speaks directly to that.
Yes.
Because I also think that it is not only about training the practitioners, but you need to raise the level of music appreciation.
Absolutely.
Across the populace. Yes,
including in the consuming public.
Because then they are going to demand
a different standard. And they will hear the little subtleties.
They will hear subtleties. But if they're not educated, then we have a problem.
Yeah.
But then it also speaks to the commercial side that Maxine is dwelling on. And this is where I think some of the stories historically And she asked the question, what is going to happen with this new phase of signing and all of that. But there were a number of business decisions.
It's not sustainable because once you get past the few dozen or the few hundred, where's the rest? You know, it needs, you know, why Afrobeat is going to continue to gain momentum? Because the practitioners, when you look at a single country, Nigeria, which is over 200 million people, Nigeria has crept into the top 10 most populous countries in the world. When you look at Ghana, which is 30 million and climbing, these are countries, in Nigeria's case, it's 60 to 70 times Jamaica's population, 70 times the market, and these are among the world's fastest growing economies. Ghana has a little stutter right now, but up to last year, Ghana was one of the world's top growing economies. You look into East Africa, Kenya is 40 million people, South Africa is 50 million people. The fact is that we are just being out-hustled and outnumbered by
the size, no, because the size of the market.
Sure.
Yeah, but
no, but that doesn't mean that Jamaica.
So how do we make the kind of alliances now?
But how can we move forward if there's a 90% I'm talking about there who will pass through 7 years of school and not be exposed to music training? In other words, we are not even playing to our strengths. We are still kind of hopping along and praying for the best without a strategy.
Yeah, well, I think I agree with what you're saying, Wayne, but I think that both, that's a right hand, and then the left hand has to be, as you know, attacked with similar focus.
Yes, protecting,
meaning the education in schools,
and then allowing for investment in the industry, protecting intellectual property. There are many other things, of course, Maxime, but it comes to the ecosystem.
No, I think the ecosystem has to be fortified and developed.
Yeah, absolutely.
But
by tapping into the potential talent out there.
But I also think that the training component, because a lot of things have gone awry. I mean, when you check, for example, some of the stories that Copeland tells in his book, I mean, we see a lot of missed opportunities. And we see a lot of self-inflicted wounds, where artists take people's money, don't turn up, they do all kinds of things that are just unimaginable, you know. And these are great artists. We're not talking run-of-the-mill people. We're talking top of the line, and those are stories that have to be told so that people understand. It is not to diminish the greatness.
The artists who owe me money right now. So I can tell you about it.
Right. No, and it's not to diminish these artists. Yeah. I mean, because these stories won't in any way make them any less great. Yeah. It's just that.
And a lot of them were robbed.
Absolutely.
A lot, you know, when you are robbed and abused, you know, like any psychological person will tell you, any psychiatrist, that coming out of such a level of abuse, you perpetuate it in a lot of different ways. I'm just saying to you.
No. One couldn't argue with that.
Understanding the artists that have done that.
Yes.
You understand what I'm saying? And I know that it comes from a callousness.
Yeah, they have been exploited,
and
they see it as retribution.
Yeah.
And paying back. Yes.
You know?
And that in itself has retarded the growth and the development
a lot.
Yes.
Absolutely.
You know.
I agree.
And those things in terms of lessons are important for those who are coming behind to understand, because regardless of what we say, even with the Bunny Wailer, the Peter Tosh, the Bob Marley, mistakes were made. And it's understandable in that time.
And will continue to
be made.
Yeah, Coxon, Danny Sims and Chris Blackwell also made mistakes.
They made mistakes too, and it's not. I mean, a lot of things that people accuse these people of being malicious and nefarious might have been out of genuine ignorance too, or you know, different reasons.
I spent an afternoon with Don Taylor, you know, so you can imagine.
Oh, the Don. The Don.
No, you know, one of my blessings in life is that I have been able to talk to players at all levels, different parts of the world. I mean, to use Eddie Grant as an example. Eddie Grant was a font of knowledge.
Oh no, Eddie's and one of the most beautiful.
Human beings.
If you can get to sit down at Bailey's with him and entertain you, is one of the most beautiful human beings.
But the fact is that there's a lot of information out there, but we don't collate it.
We have to put it we have to codify it and structure it. Thank you so much, Maxine Stowe and Wayne Chen. Musically speaking, what a show! Clyde Mckenzie here saying thank you to Danelia. Thank you to Tristan. Thank you to my 9th Maxine. And my sister Shireen, she called me and she said, you're not identifying yourself on the radio. So so Clyde Mckenzie saying
bad management.
Bad management. All right. So until next week, this is Musically Speaking. Thank you again.